Welcome to the second and final day of the RETCON Multifamily Summit. We have an amazing lineup of speakers to learn from today, along with equally notable attendees to network with. If you didn't say hi to that special person yesterday, the time is now. To kick us off today, I'm excited to introduce Karen Hollinger. Karen Hollinger is Senior Vice President, Strategic Initiatives at AvalonBay and is responsible for leading large strategic corporate initiatives. She also runs point on innovation initiatives, including AvalonBay's new tech-forward Kanso brand and the Kanso Twinbrook Concept Community, and for venture capital investment. Prior to this position, Ms. Hollinger has led several functions and departments at AvalonBay, most recently as the VP of Information Services, where she served as the lead executive for all applications, infrastructure, and IT strategy for the organization. Ms. Hollinger also spent several years as a VP National Operations with responsibility for establishing and managing the Customer Care Center in Virginia Beach, VA, a large industry-leading shared services center. Ms. Hollinger joined the AvalonBay organization in 2001 as a director in the Human Resources Department. Prior to AvalonBay, Ms. Hollinger was a senior manager at KPMG, with the partnership focused on accounting systems and IT strategy with clients in the U.S. and in developing countries. As part of this position, Ms. Hollinger started and led KPMG's IT consulting practice in Beijing, China, and led other long-term technology strategy engagements in Guam, Mexico, Kazakhstan, Bosnia, Thailand, and Georgia, and has some really good stories. Ms. Hollinger received a degree in finance from William & Mary with highest honors. As part of her involvement in real estate, she has served as the chair for both NMHC's Innovation Committee and their Systems Technology and Management Committee, and has spoken at many conferences on matters related to technology or prop tech in the U.S. and abroad. She also often acts as a judge at real estate startup venture competitions. Karen will be joined by Charlie Hewlett. Charlie is a managing director of RCLCO, a national real estate consulting firm that is the first call for organizations seeking strategic and tactical advice regarding real estate investment, planning, and development. Charlie has over 35 years of experience in the real estate industry and is the leader of the firm's management consulting practice group that provides strategic direction at the company, portfolio, and asset level to a broad spectrum of real estate clients across the country. Please join me in welcoming Karen and Charlie to the stage.
Well, it's my pleasure today to be talking with Karen Hollinger. Karen is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at AvalonBay Communities. She's responsible for leading large strategic corporate initiatives, and she's also the point on innovation and venture capital investments for AvalonBay. So Karen, strategic initiatives, what does that entail? Tell me about your role.
You know what, that's a hard thing to define. People are usually used to real estate being in sort of several roles, right? They're either asset management or the development or the construction, right? Maybe you got a little finance going on in there. AvalonBay is really an end-to-end property owner and developer. And we have a very large portfolio, 90,000 units, almost 300 apartment communities, 150,000 residents, maybe 40,000 or so pets. So we're really a pet housing company. And so we have this very large platform that we own, and we manage it as one centralized portfolio, right? One way of doing everything, which gives us this power to really innovate and apply technology across the organization. We don't have to go to 35 JV partners and various banks and ask to buy a particular software package, which gives us this incredible opportunity to really think holistically about how we provide new services, how we add new brands, how we develop differently, how we do construction, even ESG. We can apply, as an example, like solar panels. We can think about a solar panel strategy for the nation and really then just really work it through on the CapEx. So I sit at a level where I understand and work with all of the groups, all the various functions at AvalonBay, to really think about our strategy, innovation, prop tech, and I, do a lot of these events so I can meet people. So it's a great position.
So innovation and technology has really been infusing itself into the real estate industry.
Everywhere.
And we probably learned a lot of new tricks during the pandemic. How do you think apartment leasing is going to change over the next 5 years through innovation and technology? It's just kind of one part and an important part of the.
It is. It's a very important part. I mean, apartment leasing was already changing pre-COVID. So for the institutional players, the concept of doing self-touring, as an example, was first and foremost. We were already thinking about how we could offer at every community the ability to self-tour as an option, right? COVID really just flipped it on its head. And so with COVID, it didn't become an other option. It became the primary way that we do self-touring. And so when I think about, I've been with the firm for 20 years. And so when I think about how property operations worked 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, today, it's incredibly different, right? It used to be that 10 years ago, you made or break it, based on your staff, right? I'm going to go into this market. I need to find the very best leasing consultants, as an example. And those very best leasing consultants are the ones that are the highest ability to respond, to do customer service, to be a jack of all trades, right? So we used to have job descriptions that said, they were like 2 pages long. They were like, you need to be an excellent salesperson, and you need to provide great customer service, and you need to go to the bank and, maybe do some of this administrative work. And by the way, the lease packet is 35 pages long with 12 addendums. And don't forget to do addendum number 12. So it was this jack of all trades role. And even pre-COVID, we moved away from that. So as an institutional, we said, listen, we are going to provide the best sales experience. And for some residents or prospects, the best sales experience is at midnight in their pajamas, where I'm in Arizona and I'm renting a unit in Boston, and I don't want to speak with you, and I don't want to tour. I just want to see the unit, and I want to understand the price very transparently, and I want to rent the apartment. So for some prospects, that is the best customer service and sales experience. Where for other prospects, the best experience is really an accompanied tour. I want to understand, I want to talk to someone, I want to visit the apartment a couple times with my measuring tape and understand the lighting, right? And so as we evolved into this experience where sales is still important, but it's bifurcated in how the customer wants to be sold, we also bifurcated our staffing model. And so there are people that are really good at sales, and there are other people that are really good at customer service. And by the way, the administrative doesn't really add to the overall experience. It just needs to be done accurately and timely and in an inexpensive manner. So that is digital, right? And I would say that 5 or 10 years from now, it's going to be unbelievably different, even more than it is today, right? We've already gone to an AI structure for, call it 65% of our prospect interactions, right? So when you're texting with us at midnight, you are not talking to a person, you are talking to AI. And that is now becoming more norm. Data is, everyone says data is oil, but it really is. Because the more you understand your customer, the more you understand what they're looking for in a digital manner, not picking up the phone and calling leasing consultants and saying, how's leasing going? What are the customers asking for? Well, they're asking for washer dryers. All right, well, we're going to put a washer dryer in the next development. But the more that you actually have the data to say 98% of the customers are looking for a washer dryer. Oh, okay, there's a washer dryer in the next development. But 5% of them are looking for a Peloton. okay, we didn't get that before. Now I understand what the gym needs to have, right? Now I understand what amenities you really want and which ones you value. So AI, data, compartmentalized components, right? So we typically think of multifamily and we think in terms of a building. And the building has things, it's like a skeleton, right? The building has units and it has parking and it has storage and it has amenities and it has a rooftop.
Right.
But that's a building. We think about it as renting it as a whole, so to say, right? But 5-10 years from now, we're renting an apartment, which is different than a storage unit, which is different than the parking, let's say, right? So, if I'm going to have to build 300 parking spaces for a 200 unit building, which is not what I want to do, then my first question is who's going to park in those 300 spaces? And it's probably not the resident. So now I'm thinking in terms of how can I bring the public or the commercial building next door in for the parking spaces?
Interesting.
And then I think in terms of the rooftop, right? The rooftop could have all sorts of uses over and above just 5G towers, right? Or 5G small cells, right? The rooftop could be a great party space. It doesn't have to be a party space just for the residents. It can be a great party space, right? And so I think we're going to see these components of the asset really pulled apart and thought of as what's the highest and best and most accretive use for that component. So, sort of the sky's the limit when it comes to real estate at this point.
Interesting. And innovation really is part of the DNA of AvalonBay.
Yeah.
And in the pandemic, you opened up a new community called Conso in the Washington area.
Yes, we
Talk a little bit about that, and clearly something that opened in November of 2020, right, was something that you had in the works for many, many years. So,
years.
Smart or lucky doesn't matter, but describe a little bit about
I like that.
what's interesting, unique, and different about this community.
Yeah, I would say that one of the big fears when we conceived this community many years ago, right? So developments don't happen on a dime. Innovation is a long process when you're talking about a physical asset. But we started working on this asset probably, 3.5, 4 years ago, as a concept community for the idea that we were going to introduce heavy technology across. There's nothing that we haven't automated really for this building, for the process, for the digital amenities. We went into it very purposefully, I would say, to consider this as a way that we could not only test technology in one building, one brand, think about it for the portfolio, but as a result of this technology, we had to think about it from a staffing reduction point of view. So that, again, that self-touring thing is not really new for us, but we wanted to put it on steroids.
But you're really pushing the envelope here. There is no on-site staff, right? There's no leasing office.
There is no leasing office.
Yeah.
There is no leasing office. There is a call center that you may talk to in Virginia Beach. They do a great job. They're not local to the Rockville area, but they've been trained on the Rockville area. So yeah, you are really filling in a guest card, ID screening yourself digitally, and then you get a code to the door. And you can do that at 7 p.m., start to finish in about 4 minutes. You can do that ad hoc without anyone in the middle. So the few staffing interactions we have are those that fall out as an exception. They're the exception of, I know I've already gotten a key or a code to the showroom, but now I want to see unit 201 and 402, and I really want to think about it. And I want to bring my husband back, right? There's that conversation that you're having, which is what falls to the centralized staff. But call it the 95% of the touring and leasing process does not have a person involved in it.
And that's perfect for our residents that trend a little bit younger, right? Millennials,
Yep.
and Gen Z. I want it when I want it, and I don't want to talk to anybody.
Right. And we are quite purposeful in our communication on this asset being different, right? So for example, this asset does not have amenities, not really any physical amenities. It has digital amenities, but no physical amenities. It doesn't have an elevator, no pool, no gym, which, you know, if you're used to building Class A apartment communities, that feels crazy. Like you just messed up an asset, buddy.
Yeah, we've been doing the amenity wars for the last 20 years.
Exactly. This is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
But again, because we had this vision of an asset that was, call it staffing light, or as no staffing as we could get, you know, there's still someone to clean the, you know, empty the trash. You can't have a pool that needs to be maintained. You can't have a gym where you need to worry about the fitness equipment and cleaning it down every day, right? So the vision took us to the physical implications of no amenities, high resiliency surfaces, right? So we really thought through every surface in the building, and does it need to be cleaned? How can we make it sort of low, very low maintenance? Yeah. You know, it's fake turf. It's not real grass. It's fake turf.
Yeah.
It looks very nice, by the way. Right. But really, we came up with this vision pre-COVID, and obviously in a COVID environment, everyone had their amenities closed. So the big concern was that people wouldn't rent this because, you know, I want the amenities, where you know, that wasn't the situation during the lease up. But we really used communication in a heavy-handed way to make sure that the prospects understood this. Because the last thing I ever wanted was someone to rent an apartment because I like the location, I like the cost, I like the 3D pictures of every unit. And then they arrive with their moving truck and they say, you know, where do my movers go with the couch? Where's the elevator? Where's the loading zone? It's like, there is no elevator, right? I don't want those misset expectations. So we really, you know, took each really good thing or thing that was perhaps considered a detriment to the overall leasing experience, and we put it front and center, so that the customer, that if that customer accepts the no elevator as an example, they already know what they're getting into.
And I think as we've talked about in the past, it's only going to work in certain locations where you have other communities and infrastructure in place that you can leverage. But
exactly.
So far, how's the experimenting going?
Very well. While we don't speak about individual lease-up experiences as a public company, I will tell you that, you know, knock on wood, it's gone great. It really has. You know, certainly there's lessons learned. Certainly there's things we'll do better in the next community. But the overall things you can't change, right? I can't change the lack of amenities. I can't change the location. I can't change adding a leasing office that doesn't exist, right? There are things that are very core to its being that, you know, you're sitting there going, please let this work. And for the right customer demographic in the right location, right, at the right price point, it does seem to work.
Yeah. So this is a great example of how AvalonBay is innovating and pushing the envelope. And as I said, it's part of the DNA. As you look forward over the next 5 to 10 years, how do you see technology sort of changing the fundamentals of the apartment industry on a go-forward basis?
Oh, I can't even imagine it, right? I mean, you think about technology, and at this point, just as an example, I get 5 or 10 tech companies a week that are pitching me, right? And most of them are startups. They're at the seed, they're at the Series A. Not all of them, but many of them are startups. Every time I think I've seen the most innovative thing ever, a new week starts. And I didn't know that you could build in that way. I didn't know sensors could actually tell me when an apartment is vacant based on whether the water is flowing. I mean, that's actually a real life example from about a week or two ago, right? Those were not ideas that we had percolated. So at this point, technology is being applied to the construction materials, to the design, to financing, obviously, to procurement, to obviously operations, even how people lease, right? Really, the only thing that is stopping real estate from evolving at a faster clip is the fact that it's so different, right? And so a multifamily building that's a Class A in New York is almost not the same as a multifamily building that's a Class B in Columbus, right? They might as well be two industries. And so many of these technologies or many of the startups, well, first off, they always target New York, right? I mean, everything is like, yeah, it's going to go in New York. But many of the technologies are so specific to what they target that, you know, yes, that works in New York, but it doesn't work for me in Palm Beach, right? Or it doesn't work. It works in a high rise. That just doesn't make any sense in a wood frame, you know, from 1975 with very old HVAC systems, as an example. Yeah. So the building differentiation is really what will be the hampering of technology becoming ubiquitous across the industry. And then I would say the other thing that's going to hamper it, I mean, again, there's so much going on, there's so much investment, billions and billions of dollars, is the differentiation between the geographies, various regulatory requirements, right? And so, you know, I think about short-term housing. We don't do it, but when I think about that, that is going to change the industry. That is definitely the ability to rent an apartment for 2 weeks or 2 months and not a year is a significant change to the industry.
Sort of the migration between multifamily and hospitality and Airbnb and all of those things together, right?
Oh, it's blending. But given the fact that you can never do something again nationally because the sand is shifting underneath your feet, right? You think you're going to be able to do it in pick a city. And, you know, if you were to go under that strategy and I'm going to buy the building and I'm going to underwrite it under these short-term premiums, and then the city council just passed something that said, you know, no, 30 days plus, or worse, 12 months plus. Now my underwriting isn't so valid anymore. Yeah. So that's really, the technology is evolving at an incredible pace. The ideas are wonderful. The ability to recognize that to scale is hampered.
Fascinating. I always learn something new when I get a chance to talk with you, Karen. This has been fascinating. I know we only have a minute or so left. So an exit question for you. As you think about technology and innovation, right? I mean, is this a playground in which only, you know, some of the biggest, well-capitalized companies in our industry can play? Or is technology going to enable smaller companies to behave like some of the big boys? What do you think?
That is a really good question. I'm going to say both, and I'm going to hedge my bets. Okay. So on one hand, I have seen some very small owners, you know, 5,000 units or 3,000 units, and they're doing self-touring and they're doing 3D tours and, you know, they're using DocuSign for leasing. So they're using technology to replace what traditionally was a manual effort in a way that's pretty good. It's pretty, you know, they've got the basics, and they look like an institutional player. On the flip side, much of what we're doing right now requires really deep pockets and requires internal resources, heavy technology resources. You know, when you talk about integrations, you know, we might spin up a new integration to a prop tech company in, you know, 3 to 6 weeks, right? Which we're trying to get that down, where if you're a small company and you're really relying on something that is packaged to make you look like an institutional player, you don't have the IT resources to do that next integration, right? You're going to be constrained to whatever the package gives you. So I think for outperformance, it's probably going to be the larger players that are able to just constantly think about what's new, how to lower OpEx, new ideas for revenue. I do think there's going to be an advantage there. But for some of the smaller players, they are doing a pretty good job of mimicking, you know, a large branded player through technology.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Karen, it's always a pleasure talking with you. Love talking about technology and innovation, and know that you live it 24/7. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
All right. Bye now.
Thank you, Karen and Charlie.